Welcome everyone for a beautiful session with Mr. Joseph Drumheller, who's a Master Hypnotherapist, energy healer, author, and founder of JDH Academy of Wellness, a leading educational institute in hypnotherapy, meditation, and spirituality. He's also a four-time award-winning author with works in fiction, non-fiction, and children books. Before we dive into our session and discuss many things on hypnotherapy, and to find out also, is there any spiritual connection between healing and hypnotherapy? So I heartily welcome my guest today here, Mr. Joseph Drumheller. So welcome so much here, Mr. Joseph Drumheller. He is my trainer as well, and I have learned hypnotherapy from him, from his prestigious institute, JDH Academy of Hypnotherapy. It is in America. It is in Washington. And Mr. Joseph has performed over more than 2,000 private hypnotherapy sessions and has helped hundreds of students complete their clinical hypnotherapy and energy healing certification courses. And he has created more than 40 professional hypnotherapy programs. He's also four-time award-winning author with books for grown-ups as well as for kids. So I welcome you here, Mr. Joseph Drumheller. It's such a delight to have you here with me.
Thank you, Sheetal. Honored to be here today.
You.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so very much. So let's start with a very first question, which my audience and so many people would love to know, Mr. Joseph, about that. What is hypnotherapy and how it is different from stage hypnotherapy, and what is the difference between the stage and the clinical hypnotherapy?
Okay, so the stage hypnotherapy we all seen before, somebody barks like a chicken on stage or whatever. So that is actually a legitimate form of hypnosis, but it's not what we use in hypnotherapy. So what we use in hypnotherapy, at least how I use it, it's a form of guided meditation. So it takes somebody into a deeply relaxed state, and it's primarily used for three things. One is for healing, primarily emotionally, but it also can also be used for physical healing, mental healing, and definitely spiritual healing. And then it can be used to enhance creativity on many different levels. And then the last thing that's really great at for enhancing spirituality or creating spiritual awakenings. So that's kind of my that's kind of my synopsis of what hypnotherapy is. So there are different types of hypnotherapy out there, but that's the kind that I focus on pretty much. So it's all about soul evolution for me, which starts with healing.
Beautiful. Soul evolution and the healing. That's so beautiful. And do you find the body and mind connection when we do the hypnotherapy? There is a mind and body connection, Mr. Joseph?
Absolutely. So the first thing to understand about how hypnotherapy works is, first of all, it takes you into a deeply relaxed state of mind. And so when it does that, what happens is that the barrier between the conscious and subconscious mind lets down. That's called the critical faculty of the mind. And so, so when we go into the subconscious mind, that's when we go into what is referred to as the suspended dream state. And in that state of mind, that's where we can do the healing, and that's where we can awaken spiritually and stuff. But it's really important to recognize first, when you're talking about hypnotherapy, is the nature of emotions and how emotions work. Well, first of all, it's important to understand and say what the subconscious mind actually is. And
absolutely, that was I was coming to, like, what is subconscious mind? Because
so
all the things happen from there, isn't it? We start the process, the deep inductions from there only.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear from that.
When I started doing hypnotherapy long time ago, and someone asked me what the subconscious mind was, I would have said something like this. Well, it's that part of you that it's kind of like, I don't know, quit asking me hard questions, So when I started out doing hypnotherapy, I didn't really know what the subconscious mind was. And so I probably didn't really come to grips with that for probably around 10 years or so. And that's kind of weird because I was working in the subconscious all the time. But what I've learned how I define the subconscious mind now is that, and it's kind of a model. There's a few holes in the model, but this is kind of gives you an idea anyway. So the subconscious mind is the home of our non-physical experiences as human beings. So the things that live in our subconscious mind are things like our intuition, our creative insights, our imagination, our dreams, and most importantly for hypnotherapy work and healing is that our emotions live in the subconscious mind. Okay, so
that's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So
yeah, it's so fascinating. People are under the impression that we are having emotions only in the heart. They don't even know that subconscious mind is holding all the emotions.
yes, it
That's
is.
fascinating.
So the interesting thing about emotions and the nature of emotion is that everybody on the planet, all of us, has a tendency to not want to experience negative or painful emotions. So pain, anger, jealousy, all that stuff. People have a tendency to not want to feel it. But it's important to understand that emotions are born for one thing and one thing only, and they are born to be experienced. So when emotions are experienced, they dissolve into the ether. They complete their life cycle, and their energy gets recycled back into the cosmos. However, because all of us have a tendency to not want to experience uncomfortable emotions, this goes for all of us, is that unknowingly and unintentionally, we suppress those emotions into the subconscious mind. So when we avoid our pain, when we avoid our grief, it stays alive in us inside our subconscious mind. And so when that happens, we have these little entities of living creatures of these emotions that are stuck in our bodies or in our subconscious. And so what they're going to try and do is that they're going to try and create scenarios in our lives where they can be experienced. So if you have, let's say you have rage that's suppressed in your subconscious, well, your subconscious mind is going to go busily to work to allow those emotions to be experienced. So it's going to create situations in your life where you can experience rage. So the more you ignore the rage, the more you stuff into your subconscious, the more you're going to see these repeating patterns develop. And so one thing that's very clear is that if you have suppressed emotions in your subconscious mind, you're going to see repeating patterns of pain. And so almost everybody that I've ever met in my whole life has those. So it's a natural tendency that we don't know that we're doing. So it's unconscious, and it's subconscious in our subconscious. And the way we can heal those things is to go into the subconscious through states of deep relaxation, allow the barrier between the subconscious and conscious minds to let down. And then once we're in there, there's like numerous hypnotherapy techniques or meditation techniques where you can release those feelings. And then when those feelings are released, the emotions complete their life cycle, and those repeating patterns will stop.
Wow, that's amazing. That's
It is. It's fascinating. When I
beautiful.
learned it seems miraculous.
It's miraculous. It's really
Yeah.
miraculous.
Yeah.
So it means when human beings, we all go through our share of overwhelming kind of events in our life, when we have
Yep.
relationship breakups, sometime when our loved ones, they cross over. So the pain or traumas we are holding inside our subconscious mind. And what like if a person is not expressive, or he or she throughout the life is holding those emotions which are kind of now becoming dangerous, and they are coming in the form of disease. It is believed like that when we hold so many emotions inside, sometimes they come to the physical body and pop up in the form of different physical illnesses. Do you believe, like, do you agree?
Absolutely. So, the big thing with, I worked in the cancer unit for 6 years, and one thing that science is going to come around to sooner or later is the role that suppressed emotions play in creating disease. And in fact, I know now that the University of San Diego in California has been awarded a $10 million grant to research the effects of meditation on disease, and of suppressed emotion and stuff. So yes, but so if you have suppressed emotion, they create repeating patterns of pain. You're going to see it primarily in 3 areas of your life. You're going to see it in possibly in your health. That's mental, emotional, physical health. It'll come up in your
Yes.
relationships, like marriage, but family relationships in particular, or even work relationships. And it's going to come up in your finances, in your
And
career,
finances
your
also.
work. Oh, yeah, huge.
Right.
I mean, money's
Yes.
big for everybody. Everyone's worried about money, right? So there's a lot of
Absolutely.
emotions tied into our relationship to money. So,
Oh, that's
yeah.
another angle most of the people are not aware of. They are thinking, might be they are going through anxiety, they are going through panic attacks, or maybe other illnesses due to nowadays, even there is no bar to any age group. Elders are going through depression. Even the youngsters, they are going through depressions.
Oh, huge.
So
Technology is fueling depression with young people like crazy.
absolutely. So people cannot connect that going through all these mental, a lot of serious kind of anxiety or maybe stress disorders, even it can impact their financial abundance.
Very directly, very directly. So,
Yes, yes.
so money is really a reflection of your own self-worth. And so if you're
Mhm,
raised where, let's say you're berated as a child or never appreciated for the value that you had in your family, that's going to show in your
mhm,
finances at some point,
mhm.
perhaps, so, and that's not uncommon to see.
Wow, that's another angle. Like today you have
Everybody
put a
has,
light.
everybody has issues with money. Everybody.
Absolutely, and mostly, most of the people they all, they want to, have the financial abundance, and for the money things,
Mhm.
if they don't have any constant flow of money, they feel a lot of stress, and because of that, they don't understand that they are suppressed emotions. First, they have to heal that. Then, even money is going to, flow in their lives. So
Mhm.
this is like, I think, very important for the people who are watching this, that you have to understand that we should not keep the things to ourselves. We should not keep, suppressed emotions. It is better to release and to always, you know, make it like, just like not let anything inside. We have to just release it, whether through their own meditations or whatever way, or maybe they should approach hypnotherapist and they
Mhm.
should follow these techniques because it's going to be helpful for their
Yeah.
mental health, physical health, as well as financial health.
Yeah. So it's also important to know that it's nobody's fault that you experience these
Mm-hmm.
things. It's on a subconscious level. So subconscious means it's below conscious awareness. So you're not
Yes.
aware of it. So it's there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not your fault. However, when your issues come up, when like your issues with money or finances or health come up, that's the time to seek healing. Is
That's the
when,
time to seek help.
yeah, when the issues are presented. And they're right in your face, so might as well deal with them.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. I'm really, really happy to, like, you have shared this, and I'm sure many people are going to be helpful with this. So how you say, like, how old this hypnotherapy is? It is very ancient technique. It is nothing something of the modern
So,
age.
so meditative healing, where you go into the subconscious in a relaxed state and you use it for healing or creating or manifesting or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's as ancient as people are. People, ancient. So, as we come into this spiritual growth awareness phase that humanity's entering now, we're not conjuring up new energies. What we're doing is remembering ancient
Mm-hmm.
energies that have been lost throughout history. I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
India is a great example. It's through your culture for thousands of years, as far back as people have been, so that's how
Mm-hmm.
far back it goes. But hypnotherapy itself, well, at least the version that I do, as it exists now today, was kind of pioneered by a guy named Milton Erickson. I believe it was in the 1960s. He was a psychologist, and he was just a brilliant healer. And he uses kind of like
Mm-hmm.
old school hypnosis to do these amazing healings. So, and then it's kind of grown from there.
Amazing.
Been more of a meditative and spiritual process that have been incorporated into it more to this day. So,
That's
but
beautiful. That's
yeah.
beautiful explanation. That's beautiful, marvelous. So, share something like one of your stories, Mr. Joseph, like, where, there were very kind of a serious kind of illness, and you have treated any, any story where you would like to
Wow.
share with the audience?
I'll share you a story of how I got into hypnotherapy.
Absolutely. That was the question even I wanted to ask you before. Good,
Okay,
you
so
pointed out now.
this goes
Great.
way back into 1991, and I was living in a small town in northeastern Washington, and I was married. I had 2 small children.
Okay.
And we were poor, and our marriage was stressed, and I had lost a job as a geologist, so we were going to therapy. We were going to counseling once a week or once every other week, and we stopped by this bookstore. Remember, this is like in the 1990s before computers and stuff, and there was a little brochure in this bookstore that had an article in it about hypnotherapy, and I read it once, and I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. Then I read it twice. I thought, wow, this is amazing.
Okay.
And I read it a third time and said, I have to try this. I have to give it a try.
Wow.
And so I had a job interview. I had to drive far away to take this job interview, which, by the way, I didn't get. And I was driving back. And I was driving on the way back home. I was going to stop by and see this lady for that hypnotherapy session. So it's like it's like an 8-hour drive in one direction. I was driving back. And so I didn't get the job. I was driving back on this narrow road, very windy road, and there's 5 cars in a line. And this car from the back, this truck from the back, decides he's going to pass all 5 cars at once around a blind corner. And so then a string of cars comes in the other direction, and I realized, okay, there's going to be a massive wreck here, and it's going to kill like a lot of people. It's just like bad. And so as we're going around the corner, everyone is able on both sides to pull off to the side of the road and stop as this car goes by. And so no one got injured or hurt. But everybody in the line of cars I went drove 40 miles to the next town and stopped. And they all stopped and talked to each other because everyone was so frightened. And we exchanged business cards, and the guy later got arrested. But I didn't know how hypnotherapy works. Okay, so I just didn't get this job. I almost got in this fatal car accident with all these other people, and I'm driving into my first hypnotherapy session. So I didn't know that when you decide to go on a spiritual retreat or decide to have a hypnotherapy session, that your process will start the minute you decide to go. Okay, so the minute, and usually that comes in the form of paying money. So when you pay for your session or when you pay for your retreat, your session is going to begin, or your experience is going to begin, and it can be days before the event. So this was happening hours before. So I was going into this hypnotherapy session with these kind of sort of negative events, I guess you'd call them, but they're very powerful. And so I go in, meet this woman, and she's very intuitive. She's very kind. I didn't know what I was getting into. She asked me in this interview, says, well, why have you come to see me? I thought, it's like, I don't know. I read a little article on it. I thought it'd be something really cool to try, And she said, so she's being quite intuitive, she's quite an intuitive lady. She stops, no, she says, why are you really here? And I thought, I don't know. It's like then I heard myself say something that felt like somebody else said something through my mouth. And I said, oh, I feel like I have a block to my creativity. And so
that was your subconscious mind.
Yeah. And so but I come from a very uncreative family. There's no real creativity anywhere on either side of my family for as far back as it goes. They're just all pretty much regular people. And so I thought that was a really strange thing for me to say, because I didn't have any creative inclinations either. I had grown up, went to college, got a job, had a couple kids. I was doing that. So we get into the session, and she gets me relaxed. I'm lying on this couch and da-da-da. And she stops. She's going through her little hypnotherapy technique, and she stops right in the middle of the session. And she says, what does the word abandonment mean to you? And as soon as she's going on some intuition. And so as soon as she said that, I uncontrollably burst into tears and just started crying, and I couldn't stop. And I was really embarrassed. It's like, And then I saw all these images of every time I was abandoned in my life coming by me like I was on a freight train, like a train going down the track, seeing all these images of my past going by. It's like, it was the most incredible experience I ever had, you know? And so the session ends, and I'm standing outside getting ready to get into my car, and I'm standing there kind of like dumbfounded of what had just happened. And I realized a couple things that happened. First of all, I was really embarrassed because I had just had a major meltdown in front of this person that I didn't even know. And the second thing that happened is that I realized I was onto some very, very powerful medicine, and I was going to do this whatever it took. So I drove home, and this is more about hypnotherapy. So when you go into a hypnotherapy session and you give it intention, so if you're going to heal something in particular, so what will happen after the session is that your subconscious mind will go to work right away to start to bring that to you. So you'll start to see shifts in your life, usually within the first 3 days after a session. And so that's why when I do a hypnotherapy session with people, I will send them home with what I call a verification sheet. So it's simply a checklist of things you can expect to see the days after a session, because sometimes you'll have an abstract experience in a session and you won't be able to connect the dots to, like, you have a shift in your finances, or you had this kind of dreamy hypnosis experience, but then later something actually happens in your physical world. And so if you can have a verification sheet or something to help connect the dots of, like, this abstract experience creates something in your physical world, then that does two things. One, it creates awareness for the client.
Yes.
So when somebody goes into that, they start to become aware, okay, this is how it works. And the thing that it does for the therapist is that it helps create confidence for them, because they can now realize that my sessions are working, they're seeing the impact. And so when you get more confidence, you become a better healer. It's like anything else in life. The more confidence you get, the more success you have, or the more success you have, the more confidence you get.
Absolutely.
So I was on my way home after this session, having all these, and I was going to get to experience firsthand how the subconscious mind works in the physical world after you have a very powerful session. So I went home, meet my little family, and immediately I found out that while I was gone, my wife had an affair and my marriage was over. So my marriage comes to an instant halt, like hours after the session. So I have to, within a few days, I was moving out of my house. I had lost my wife and my children. And then I was working this job for the county. And a few weeks later, I got politicked out of that job. So I was out of a job, I was out of family. So I seemingly had lost everything. And then I moved to a town like that was 3 hours away, which was my hometown. I had to go back home and kind of try and put my life back together. And so, and then, but in the meantime, I was going back to see this woman every 2 weeks. And so I was having all these like major mystical experiences, and all this like energy was coming through, and I didn't know what it was. And so I was going through this spiritual awakening, but I didn't really know I was going through a spiritual awakening. And then I went back to this hometown, and I began to have what I would later recognize years down the road that I was having Kundalini experiences. So my energy field was waking up, all my chakras were waking up. So I had gone with this woman, I had gone through a major spiritual awakening, but I didn't know what it was. You know, it actually took me years to figure it out. But when I got back to my hometown, things started happening. I started playing music, started playing bass guitar, and I got in a band. I started writing books, which I've written, I don't know, 40 books now. And then
means your block of creativity was like lifted, and you were just
I was doing
for
artwork.
A new kind of.
Yeah, and so the initial session where I thought I heard myself saying, well, I think I have a block to my creativity. Well, that session did everything it could do to remove the blocks to my creativity. And it just happened to be essentially everything in my life. And so
that's something very profound. That's something very profound.
It was huge. It was huge. So that was my introduction into hypnotherapy, and not only the healing aspects of it, but the spiritual and the creative aspects of it. And so from then I was hooked. I went on to get certified, you know, a few months later. The rest is history. But I've experienced, and I've taken many, many people through their own spiritual awakenings and their own mystical experiences and stuff, and their healings. And and then now that what we're getting into now is we're getting into a process or a program that's taking it even further. So so we're onto a new thing that has just come into view since December, and we're really excited to see, or interested to see how it goes, because we've opened a new can of worms, and it's really huge. It's really powerful. So maybe we'll talk about that.
That's so fascinating. That's so fascinating, your story, why you joined, why you came into the fold of hypnotherapy, and how your journey began. And now you connected to this hypnotherapy since 1991, and it's more than three decades. More than 3 decades.
Yeah.
I believe more than 3 decades or 4 decades. I don't know. It's three and a half decades.
3.5.
Three and a half. Yeah.
Yeah.